Dugout Nation, welcome to the Dugout CEO podcast. Fired up about today's show with former big leaguer Brandon Beachy. Brandon wasn't a highly sought after high school or college prospect, but that didn't deter him from making it to the big leagues and having a really successful career. Brandon shared some awesome stories from Bobby Cox, Chipper Jones, and discussed the business that he started after he retired from baseball. He also digs into some of the work that he does as a franchise consultant with FranChoice and helping others learn about getting into business for themselves. Brandon, welcome to the Dugout CEO.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're an Indiana guy. I'm an Indiana guy. And I figured, you know what? We're both baseball guys. Let's talk about all things Indiana baseball business and just make it happen. Does that sound like a good plan?
Sounds great. Yeah, let's go.
All right. So you were Indiana high school superstar, and then you turned into Indiana Wesleyan superstar. And I'm an NAIA guy, and I have a fond appreciation for small college baseball in a climate that it's typically 30 to 40 degrees. So talk to me about growing up playing baseball in Indiana, because I was a Florida guy originally. My parents moved me to Indiana in third grade and grew up playing baseball in Indiana. So what was it like being a baseball guy in Indiana?
Yeah, well, as you know, as a baseball guy in Indiana is a 4-month window type of thing. So, I was a baseball guy in so much that, I couldn't play basketball year round, and I wasn't good enough to play basketball year round, and ended up being way better. God had his way of limiting the cap on what I could ever do in basketball. But yeah, no, baseball is great. One thing about playing baseball in Indiana is you get good at other things like scraping ice off the field, before the game and doing little things like that to be able to play the game that most people wouldn't even think of if they didn't grow up in, the North or the Midwest.
Sure. It definitely makes you appreciate it when you actually get on the field and play. So let's talk about your journey from, growing up, playing Little League, playing high school, and then journeying to Indiana Wesleyan. Talk to me about why you picked Indiana Wesleyan, a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, I was, definitely a late bloomer, so I wasn't big. I wasn't strong. I was really slow. And I didn't pitch. I didn't pitch from the time, I got to the big field at 13 until really my senior year of high school. I threw, I don't know, 20 innings out of relief or whatever. And had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, I could hit. I could play defense. I wanted to play. But again, most of the bigger schools, they're signing guys that sophomore, junior year. And I was, again, late bloomer. So, my high school coach, Ryan Berryman, he helped me, get in touch with some schools. And I had some smaller D1s that would have let me walk on. But, Mark DeMichael over at Indiana Wesleyan, he saw me looking at another guy the year before. And, we kept in touch, and they offered me a scholarship. And with my academic stuff, it basically gave me a full ride to go to, a good Christian private school, and a chance to play right away. So I couldn't pass that up.
Yeah. That's what, coaches, when they would recruit me, they said, would ask, what position did you play? And I said, I play every position but the bench. I just wanted to get into the game. And I think that's unique. Jumping into Indiana Wesleyan, you got to play right away. So talk to us about your career there. You played there, and then you ended up transitioning to professional baseball. Talk to us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I came in as a first baseman, third baseman, and I saw the field. I DH'd, played a little bit everywhere as a freshman. I remember that fall. I had thrown a little bit, and I played Legion ball that summer, the summer in between high school and college. And the pitching coach was Pat Underwood, who's I think he was former #1 overall pick out of Kokomo, Indiana, my hometown. And his son was my age, and he gave me some pointers, and I ended up being the closer for that summer league team, and it was fun. Again, it was nothing I cared about or focused on, but just, hey, this kid's got a good arm. so I came in that fall and I saw our relief pitchers and, I didn't know what to expect coming into an NAI school. And we had a lot of guys throwing 80 miles per hour in the bullpen. And I told my coach, I said, hey, I pitched a little bit, over the summer. I mean, if you need another bullpen arm, I'd be happy to help out. Again, kind of like you're saying, as a way to get on the field, be more involved. As a freshman, I knew I could play, but I wanted every opportunity to see the field. So I think I threw 15 innings out of the bullpen that freshman year. But I got better as I went, and then kind of served as our closer the next couple of years with a few starts mixed in that were, really put a magnifying glass on the fact that I had no idea what I was doing on the mound. So those did not go well.
So when did it click where you were like, you know what? I'm actually pretty good at this thing and I could make this potentially into a career opportunity. Was there like a game or a scout, or talk to me about that?
There was definitely never a moment in college where it clicked that, hey, I've got a chance to do this professionally. But a teammate got me, he played in the Virginia Valley Summer League the year before. And his coach called him up and said, hey, you got anybody there that's good enough to come play for us? And he told him about me. And I said, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love the opportunity to do that. So I went there and I called the coach. I was a, 300, 325 hitter in NAIA with, not 100 home runs. So I knew at that point, like, hey, I'm not going to be a professional hitter. Like, it's not going to happen. But, I could touch 90, I could get into the low 90s. So, I mean, if you've got that, you've got, the potential to grow into something that you could see on a major league field. So I told the coach, said, hey, would you mind if I just come out there to pitch this summer and just give it a shot, just try it. And he was, happy to do that for me. I got there, through, and I mean, within the first week, the pitching coach said, hey, you're going to be our closer. And it was going well. I think I made the all-star team in that league, playing a lot of D1 guys and best talent I had been around at this point. And I was, feeling good. It's like, I'm doing okay. Like I'm figuring a few things out here. And then later in that summer is when a scout from the Braves came up to me after the game, when we were cleaning home plate, and said, hey, come over here. He said, hey, did you get drafted this year? Because if you did, I can't talk to you. And I kind of laughed in his face. I was like, no, I definitely didn't get drafted. And then it got a little more serious because the next thing he said was, hey, I saw you throw tonight, and if it were up to me, I'd sign you right now. And he said, well, my boss isn't going to let me do that. Is there any way your coach would let you throw again tomorrow? Coach came over and he's like, yeah, I'll pitch him again right now if that's what you want to see. And, so he came back the next night, and I threw another inning, and off I went to Danville, Virginia to meet up with the Braves rookie ball team that next day. And at that point, it came as a total shock to have the opportunity to play pro ball. But it still didn't seem like, my thought process at that time was, if I can get them to agree to pay for my last year of school, then I have to take this opportunity, just to say that I did, just to try. But it never crossed my mind that it was going to work out,
Yeah. And it did work out. Obviously a fantastic career. You battled through a lot of adversity. For the people listening, you can't see the background, but he's got a Bobby Cox jersey back there. I'm a big Bobby Cox fan. You actually had an opportunity to play for him his final year. What was he like to play for, as a player?
Yeah, so he was, man, everybody knows these kind of people in their life where it's like, man, there's this just really successful guy, and he goes to your church or you see him somewhere, and they just make you feel special when you're around them. They just have that quality. I remember the first time I met him was down in the instructional league in 2009 after that season. And I had played in low A and high A at this point, and I was sitting there with, he's in his golf cart over there behind a fence, and one of the minor league coaches said, "Hey," to the guy next to me, "Hey, go take Bobby a cup of water. Go offer him some water." And the other guy was, can't remember who it was, but he's like, no, he was too nervous, didn't want to do it. And I said, "I'll do it." And I went and got a cup of water, and I went over and offered him the water, and he kind of lit up, and he said, "Thank you," and called me by name and knew who I was. And that like, blew me away. And it just made me feel so special, and then a year later, I'm getting called up in a division race in September, and he brings me the ball and says "You got it," and just made me feel like the nervousness was gone, because I could tell how much he believed in me in that moment. And it's just one of those guys. If he believes in me, how could I not believe in myself? Kind of thing.
Did he do or say something specifically that made you think, hey, this guy believes in me?
It's just the way he delivers everything, and it just this calm confidence. I can't remember the exact words he said, but he told me, that I was going to do great, and just go out there and just do what I'd been doing.
Amazing. I've heard similar stories too from other pitchers. I got a couple of buddies that had an opportunity to play as well, and you hear the same thing over and over again. And it's amazing that he's able to because you're coming up as a rookie, you're kind of nervous, but he just figured out a way to calm your nerves and let you know, you got it. Amazing.
Yeah.
What other
Yeah.
experiences, playing for the Braves or the Dodgers, that kind of come to mind that were cool things for our listeners to hear, or things that you learned while being a Major League Baseball player that you think could be an encouragement to others?
Man, some of the cool things, just being around guys that were the best in the world at what they did, and just seeing how they go about their work. Chipper was really good to me when I came up to. He I tell this story. He had blown out his ACL, I believe, in 2010 before I came up, and I made my first two starts on the road. So he wasn't there. He wasn't traveling. So I hadn't even met him yet. And we get home, and that first day, he comes into the clubhouse and comes right over to me and introduces himself, as if I don't know who he is, and tells me, he watched every pitch of those first two starts I made, and said I did a great job. And he said, if you've got some time later, I'd love to, talk to you about it and give you, what I saw from a hitter's perspective. I was like, yeah, I think I can make some time later for that. So that was pretty cool. And then and he gave me some insights, and just his wisdom and his knowledge of baseball was mind blowing. And he told me in that moment, he said, "Hey, you feel free to come, sit in and listen to me or any of the other hitters talk whenever you want." And I took him up on that over the next few years, and he was always so gracious to do that. He let me sit in, but then he would go beyond that, and he would, it'd be three hitters sitting there talking about something, and then he would, pause and turn to me and be like, and this is how this relates to you. Like, if I were you, I would do the, X or Y. In this type of scenario. And, those things were very special to me. He's just a great teammate. I guess some of the other things that stand out in my career, not, on the not so positive side that I took away and learned, is just that, the resiliency, being able to go from, scared and unsure to, go climb all the way up to being extremely confident in what I'm doing, where I felt like I belonged, to have all of that, shattered through injuries and go all the way back down, and just kind of learn that, no matter what walk of life you're in, you're going to ride that roller coaster at some point, where there's going to be, extreme highs and extreme lows, and figuring out that, no matter how good or bad it is in that moment, if I stay kind of, somewhere in the middle, and just, have that rock in who I am, that, I'm going to keep moving forward, and things are going to be okay and work out.
It's great. So let's talk about that transition from baseball to business. So how did you realize, hey, you know what? It's time for something new? And then talk to us about that transition.
I didn't know. I mean, I knew, but I was scared. I should have walked away. It's easy to say now. I should have walked away after the 2016 season, but doctors were telling me, this is wrong, and giving me a logical explanation for why the arm keeps breaking down. So, do this surgery and it'll kind of fix it, and you got a path forward. I didn't believe it. It made sense to me, but I didn't believe it. But I was scared of what to do next. I had no idea. So I kept plugging away, and I wasted 3-4 years rehabbing and trying to make comeback attempts through the minors and indie ball. So the transition was hard, just because I didn't realize how wrapped up into that I had become, and that, at this stage in life now, it's kind of, I can't go back and do the things that I wanted to do out of college, or I'd planned to do, now that I'm in my 30s and have children. It's different. But ultimately, I met someone. I was connected to somebody through a friend that taught me about franchising, and showed me, because baseball is very structured and hierarchical, and I kind of assumed everything in life was the exact same way. Like, hey, you're going to start at the bottom, and if you're good, you're going to work your way all the way to the top to have success at the top. And through franchising, it became pretty apparent to me right away that I could take a lot of the things that I had gained through a decade plus in professional baseball, that don't necessarily show up you can't write on a resume. Like, my hard work, being a self-motivated, resilient, being a teammate and a leader, somebody that, as athletes, we spend every single day with 25 to 30 other personalities in the room for 8+ hours a day, just existing, living, traveling. And that's no easy task sometimes. And being able to maneuver through that, and learn how to treat certain people differently to get the best result out of everybody is a very valued skill. Again, that is not something that shows up on a resume necessarily, but I quickly realized that all of those things could be applied to franchising and in business, where, hey, I'm coming into a system that's set up, proven, and really all those intangibles are what a little capital, and then those intangibles are what I need to apply it to achieve success, and kind of skip that ladder, those bottom rungs, potentially, if I do it well.
So people hear the word franchise. Hey, I own a franchise, or McDonald's, it's a franchise. Like, how would you define what is a franchise? And let's talk specifically about what you do in that realm.
Yeah. So, at this point in my life, all I knew of franchising was McDonald's, Taco Bell, Papa John's, fast food. That's really all I knew of franchising. And yeah, my eyes were open pretty quickly. Everything is franchised. If you're having somebody come check out your gutters or your siding or anything on your home, the home service industry is, I mean, half of them are franchises. Fitness studios, everything driving down the street, strip malls are full of, stores and brick and mortar services that are franchised out there. So I learned quickly, what else was out there, the types of businesses, and how there's, a wide variety of setups. And then, so what I do is I got into a franchise called Koala Insulation, a home insulation franchise that I would have, a decade ago, I would have bet my life savings that I would never be in home service or insulation. But what I learned in researching it was, the business itself is not as important as the goals that I have for myself, for what I want my life to look like and what I want to provide for my family. And if those boxes are all checked, then the business itself, through franchising, can be achieved. And that's what I did. So I I own the Nashville market in Tennessee for Koala Insulation, and I built it up. And within about a year, I was able to pull myself out of the day to day of that business and have enough money coming in to pay managers. And now I work with those managers from my home office here on a daily basis, and I have that freedom of my time, which was a big goal of mine getting into it.
I mean, I think that's awesome because you're like, hey, insulation. Are you passionate about insulation? Maybe you've became passionate about it over time, but you were really passionate about building a business that would serve your life and serve your family. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs, Brandon, they're building these things, but they're like, they don't really know what is the end goal. Like, why am I building this business? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And ultimately, it should be to serve your life. Now, what I think is really unique, where a lot of people, even in the franchise space, don't get to, is they don't build a business that actually allows them to own it and not run it. How are you able to be a franchisee, but also build a team around you where you're not the one that's actually going in and doing the service or answering the calls or selling the next thing? Because I see so many business owners, they're stuck in the weeds running their business, when really a business should provide a income or a return without your day-to-day involvement. How are you able to actually, after a year, you said, get out of running the day-to-day?
Yeah, and that's the key. I think that's most people's goal when they get into something like that. And it goes back to being in that locker room, finding the right guys, the right personalities, the people that see things the same way I do, that I can trust and get along with, and I enjoy talking to often. And then finding ways to incentivize them so that they're on my team, and I can really view it as that. And like you mentioned, insulation is not a sexy business necessarily, and that's not what I'm passionate about. But I don't have to be, because I get plenty of fulfillment out of changing the lives of the people on my team. It's a service that the homeowners that we serve, we help them. We do a good thing, but I definitely get more, just happiness and joy out of, the team I've built, and how it's changing the course of their lives.
What do you think that, in baseball, you had your own niche, right? You had your own, hey, this is my special pitch. This is the thing that I did that was really set me apart. Running your business, what do you think that thing is that sets you apart from the majority of business owners and entrepreneurs?
I think the way I view things, the big picture, the broad approach, and it's just very basic life principles, and you apply them to business. And don't be short-sighted. It's, hey, we're going to provide services. We're going to learn our products and our industry to where we're offering the right thing, and we're, charging the right amount for it. We're going to do it right. When things go wrong, we're going to take care of them. We're not going to leave people high and dry. And we're going to be honest and trustworthy and do the right thing. And that's going to have a snowball effect. If we treat people, our guys go into every home as if it's a family member of theirs, and treating them that way, has an exponential effect to the growth of a business over the long term.
And how are you
And
able to
that's
and how are you able to communicate that message to your team? Do you kind of have, hey, it's a pregame huddle like you're in the locker room, or how do you communicate those values and what's important to your team?
some high level talks like that, but it's not a constant thing. It's more backing it up when things happen. Being when something goes wrong, fixing it and showing them like here's how we're going to handle this. We're going to take care of this person. We're going to do this thing, and then kind of a little recap of it. Now here's why we're doing it this way. This person. This is a small job. This is not a vital thing to our business. But every interaction that we have could be $100,000 worth of referrals or future relationships based on how we make them feel. It just that kind of that Bobby Cox, effect where I want every person that deals with our business to feel like, hey, we have looked out for them. We are instilling confidence in them, in us, and that's going to, it's going to multiply.
All right. So Brandon, I know you said being your own boss, owning your own business, allows you to do certain things. And you shared some challenges that you had with your family and your wife specifically. And if it wasn't for owning your own business and setting up your business where it didn't need you to run the day to day, there would have been some big challenges. So talk a little bit about some of these challenges that you've had, and how your business was able to kind of sustain you through it.
Yeah. I was able to get that freedom of my time to figure out, hey, what else do I want to do? I want to do other things. And around that time, not long after that, my wife got sick, unfortunately. And she's doing okay, and she's on the path to recovery now. But it's been about a year, and there were weeks at a time where she's basically bedbound, and with two little kids. Had I gone into a different area, I couldn't have had a corporate job. I couldn't have been doing medical sales or whatever else. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, take a month, take 8 months, we'll keep paying you. But fortunately, I had the right people in place and the team in place and the freedom of my time where really my business expanded because I really wasn't absent. I'm still talking to my managers on the phone for an hour a day or so and handling the big picture things while being able to take care of my wife and my kids. That luxury and that freedom I just couldn't have had anywhere else. So I'm really, really grateful and thankful. And there truly aren't very many other, things you could be doing other than working for yourself and building something for yourself that allows that freedom when things are good, you can fill that time with other things. And when things are bad, that the ability to be there was really a blessing for me and my family.
Yeah. And I think I want to challenge our listeners with, what if somebody got sick? What if you couldn't work for a month? What if you're right? An employee of a company is not going to have a lot of grace typically from a boss. If it's, hey, I need to take 3 weeks off, I need to take a month off, either they're going to get terminated or they're going to go without income. And a lot of people can't go without income. And I heard this the other day. It's, if you're a top performer in your company, maybe you're not the owner, but if you're a top performer, look at something. Look at a side hustle. Look at something that you can maybe be your own boss one day, own your own business. And then when you do, figure out a way to build something that generates money and income without you, because your kids get older, they have activities. You don't want to miss games, right? Somebody gets sick, you want to be there. You got aging parents, you want to be there. And I think owning your own thing, but also owning your own thing where you're not having to run it is really important. And I know you were talking to me about your journey of, all right, you're in one thing, but maybe you want to transition to something else, or the thing that you're in isn't working, or you want to build a business or whatever. So talk to me a little bit more about your franchise consulting business and helping, whether it's former athletes that are transitioning out of baseball, or it's a a person that's been a executive at a business, but they're wanting to own their own thing. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, back to my limited, very limited knowledge of what franchising was before I talked to somebody, I knew right away in that conversation, I think this is right for me, but also I want to do what this guy's doing and help others that are in my same shoes. So yeah, after about a year, I was able to go through training with a company and be able to do that. And yeah, it's really just, it boils down to the processes, kind of like we talked about earlier. Just figuring out like, hey, I'm going to do some education through talking to you for a few calls, a couple hours, where you're going to learn more about franchising, and then we're gonna really get down to, hey, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your likes and dislikes? What are your goals? What do you want your day to day to look like in tomorrow, 5 years from now? All of those things, and through that, we'll kind of build a model of what you want things to look like, and then I'll go behind the scenes and I'll find some businesses that can fit that model, that have the potential to be a path towards that. And then I kind of help people through the investigation process with those two after connecting them to those businesses.
So anybody that's currently looking for an opportunity, hey, I want to be my own boss, I want to own my own business. They're in something now, or they're looking to jump into something. They contact you, and you just get to know them, understand what their vision is and what they're looking to do, and you match them up. Is that how it works?
That's exactly right, and it's a completely free process too, which is pretty hard to find anywhere. But yeah, the candidates that I work with, they pay me nothing, um, and it's not something you don't have to be a millionaire to get into your own business either. There's plenty of models where if you have $50,000 capital, you can invest in a new business. And then there's obviously all the way up to, you can be Shaquille O'Neal and buy 40 Papa Johns and, build an empire too. So anywhere in between.
Got it. All right, so let's go to our last segment, chin music. So first, was there a batter that jumped in the batter's box when you were pitching that you were like, oh boy, I can't wait to go after this guy? Was there somebody that you really just love going after?
Oh man. That there's a couple that come to mind. Standing on the mound with Albert Pujols, who I looked up to so much as he steps into the box. That was kind of a surreal moment, where that was one of the very few times where I feel like I kind of came out of that zone and like understood what was happening. That was pretty cool.
Did you ever
And
knowingly say, you know what, I need to back Albert up a little bit and own this plate? Did you ever throw one up and into him? Do you remember?
there was a pitch. He called a timeout in my windup, at the beginning of my windup, and the umpire gave it to him, and I might have been in the stretch. Had to have been. And at the time, there was something I did where somebody told me, hey, if somebody does that, don't stop. Just throw the ball. Don't hurt yourself or anything by stopping. So I had made the habit of, when that happened, I would launch one 20 feet up the net behind home plate. And I did that to Albert, and I don't think he liked it. It wasn't over his head necessarily, but he just gave me a funny look, and then he flew out to center field, and he was saying some things in Spanish to me on his way back to the dugout. Um, but yeah, I didn't go up and in, but I think I got under his skin a little bit.
We got to figure out a way to find that video and put it in the show notes. So you gave him a little bit of chin music per se. So we like to have a segment here, chin music. Just anything that you really want to leave Dugout Nation with, our audience. Everybody on this calls, they're a leader. They're leading their families, they're leading their businesses, they're a coach. Anything that you're like, hey, you know what? This is the one message that I want to give to everybody listening.
Man, that's tough. I don't have any succinct nuggets of wisdom per se. I just back to going through my transition, through injuries and all of that. It's, hey, if you're solid in who you are at the core and what you believe in, then, the highest of highs or the lowest of lows can really only move you so much. You can stay right there and stay true to yourself and keep looking forward. And, because there were some times where it was pretty dark, as I'm trying to figure out what's next. But I never, wavered too far, and I always knew who I was at my core. And not being a baseball player anymore doesn't change any of that in who I am and how I, treat people on a daily basis.
So good. Well, good deal, Brandon. Well, thanks for being a guest. Where would our audience go to learn more about you, get in contact with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That might be the easiest, or you can email me at bbeachy@franchoice.com. You can also find me on Franchoice's website. I'm on there, and Meet the Consultants page. Yeah, reach out, send me a message on LinkedIn. Be happy to talk to anybody.
Good deal. We'll put all of your contact information in the show notes, Brandon, and thanks so much for being a guest on the Dugout CEO.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Dugout Nation, what an honor to spend time with Brandon Beachy. Really impactful lessons here. Here are my big 3 takeaways. The lesson he learned from Bobby Cox: show people that you believe in them. People need to know that they can do it. Oftentimes, people don't think they can. Sometimes they need a pat on the back or an encouraging word. And oftentimes, the right word at the right time can give people the fuel they need to win. Number 2, build something that doesn't rely on you. Ask yourself the question, what if something happened to you? What if you were unable to work? What if you had to spend time caring for a loved one? What if someone got sick and you were unable to do the amount of work that you do today? What would happen? Would you be okay? If you were an employee working for somebody else, would they understand? Do you have the right insurances in place to protect yourself in case something happens? And making sure that if you are your own boss, a business owner, ask yourself, can you remove yourself from the day-to-day operations of your business and know that your business isn't going to skip a beat without you? Look for ways to build a team around you that doesn't make you the person to have to get everything done. Number 3, have a clear vision of what you want. With Brandon transitioning out of professional baseball, it was a big change. But once he got really clear on what was important to him, his family and his faith, he was able to build a business that served his life rather than a business that he had to serve.